Welcome back to the Centre for Innovation Leadership podcast. My name is Anna Ashton Scott, and I'm from the Data Lab Innovation Centre, and I'm joined by colleagues from across the innovation centres today. Jeanette.
Hi everyone, my name's Jeanette Hughes and I'm from DHI.
Hi there, I'm Gavin Johnston and I am from Built Environment Smarter Transformation.
And hello, I'm Liz Fletcher from iBioIC.
And this episode is about from innovation to adoption. I'm going to start by asking you all, from your perspective, why is adoption often the most difficult stage of the innovation journey? Who would like to start?
I'm happy to start, yeah. So I suppose because I represent digital health and care is a pretty complex landscape. It takes many different people. It's got clinical safety often at the back of it. So when you're doing a project like ours, it takes quite a lot of evidence to actually make sure that innovation is safe, secure, accessible, cost-effective. Citizens will use it alongside health and care partnerships, and it brings value to the system. So we tend to find it does take a long time to build that evidence. It takes a long time to test it in situ, within health and care environments. And I suppose at the end, when it is ready to be handed over, it then takes quite a lot of time to find that business as usual sustainability argument. And we find that we spend a lot of time working with our partners to build that business case about why should the service change, how does the digital become embedded, and what's all the benefits it has to offer, especially in this kind of financial challenging times when there isn't big pots of money. I think the other reason, if I can go into a second reason, is there's a lot of research funding, but for digital health and care, there's very little from research into adoption funding, and that is a bridge that often needs to be built. It's not automatic that our health and care boards and partners have that money just to implement it. So that's another challenge for adoption for digital health and care.
I think from a built environment perspective, I think it's scale, both in terms of the scale of the sector in itself, in terms of that innovation adoption, as you're talking about multiple different companies, different stakeholders delivering different products and services, in terms of that broader, wider adoption of a particular proof of concept. And then also to pick up on the point around the funding is there for the pilot project, but what we are experiencing in our sector is something at a completely different scale. So a pilot might look at an individual treatment or an individual build program, but actually trying to get that into delivery across a program requires significant investment, and you're using quite a small data set to have a proof of concept for what is a large infrastructure investment. And I think that's where we really struggle, is to make those connections. We've done the proof of concept. It's how do you then write the business case for wholesale adoption? And there is no real mandate for a sector such as built environment to adopt all of the same practices in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think lots of really similar themes coming out there. I mean, you working with biotechnology, somebody might have developed something in a very small volume in a lab, but they then have to make thousands of litres of this product. So they have to work at scale, and that's expensive. You also need different people with different skill sets as well. So lots of people can come up with ideas, but there's fewer people that know how to implement those in the real world. Then you have to persuade investors to part with a lot of money, so you have to really make that commercial argument. There's markets as well. Consumers, will consumers buy? Will they buy? Will they trust what you've made? All the regulations around that. So there's a huge number of, not barriers, but obstacles that need to be overcome when you're moving from an innovation to something that's a real world product. And I think we definitely some shared challenges there.
Yeah, it's a sort of organisational change piece, isn't it?
Yes.
Rather than just and so thinking about adoption at scale, what role do partnerships play in enabling that in your own experiences?
Given that it's in the job title, I think the partnerships are hugely important, particularly around partnerships across private industry as well, because if you're working at a pilot level, you might be working with one private entity, maybe one or two academic institutions, and potentially a policy landscape, but you need to align multiple facets of that across the policy piece, across the industry engagement as well, to understand what the benefit is, and make sure that you're bringing something in that is adoptable at scale, because there's lots of really excellent innovation projects that have a proof of concept but will fall down at that scale delivery because they actually maybe only sit at that pilot level. And you need those partnerships clearly set out such that you've got the knowledge exchange and transfer, you've got the right people around the table, and then also those innovative ideas about, well, what aspect of this might we take forward into our business and how do we make it deliverable at a bigger scale in the macro, but perhaps a smaller scale in the micro in terms of what your investment is.
Sure.
I think no companies can really do it on their own. And I think the beauty of the innovation centres and their membership, I mean, we're all kind of managed communities, is you can bring those partnerships together by helping those people, signposting, getting other people around the table, running workshops and events. So I think that's a lot of what we do, is providing that support through the community to help those partnerships, which are essential.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to the evidence and taking people on that innovation journey so that when you're getting to adoption and scale, you have convinced the necessary partners, you know, whether it be the industry partner that has a product that's now convinced that they could get a commercial sale, or the health and care partners that are then convinced that this digital tool will work in practice and show them the benefits. And I think a partnership that we kind of hold close is the citizen partnership. So all the work that we do is co-designed, and co-designing with all partners is key because I think trust is then enabled. And if you have that trust, you then have got more chance of getting adoption and you've got more chance of getting scale. Not guaranteed, but a greater chance.
It's that thing, isn't it, of making sure people don't feel like something's happening to them.
Precisely.
That it's a sort of joint effort, and I guess it sort of de-risks a project if companies don't have to do that alone. If you've got multiple partners from across different areas of expertise and coming at it from.
I think a lot of it comes down to the idea of whether or not they feel like they're involved in, it's their problem statement, that they are part of the solution within this, as opposed to someone being off in a silo solving a problem that they don't consider to be a problem. And I think that's where the partnership activity is so critical. And I think that working across it, that either it's a triple or a quadruple helix, however you want to define your innovation centre at any given moment, is that it requires every organisation has people in different areas and different levels, and the idea being that if you're speaking to one academic institution, that then is a de facto for all academia, and that's not the case, not even necessarily. And again, that's true for policy landscape as well, government and the innovation centres, and certainly the sectors you work in. So you know, it's collaboration is key, and the partnership piece of that is that level of buy-in, and if that is at an individual citizen level or it's an organisational level, it's integral to the adoption.
Sure, I think that's what we always find in the AI adoption piece as well. If you're not looking for a problem for AI to solve, you're finding an organisational problem, a business problem that is annoying everybody or would make somebody's life easier, and then finding a solution to that problem, which could be a technology solution. But if people feel that they are having their problems solved and their lives made easier, or their work, they're getting freed up to do more meaningful work, then that's going to help. That's going to help that adoption piece, isn't it?
I think there's also partnerships with investors, which people can overlook, but investors, whether or not they're private or public, have to be part of the process of scaling and getting products to market. So, and also justifying to them why they should invest. And a lot of them are investing because of the challenges that are being solved. So I think they're also key partnerships people need to work on very early in the process of the innovation journey.
That's a good point.
Sure. And on the sort of flip side of that, what typically causes promising innovation to stall, or innovation activity to stall?
Lack of funding.
I think we probably all agree in that one, isn't it? Investment. But I think if you put investment aside, there is that gulf between projects, pilots, proof of concepts, finishing, even promising results, enthusiasm from all partners. And then it's like, well, who owns that now to take it forward? And coming back to Lizzie's point about investment, some investment takes longer to realise than other investments. You know, I can definitely talk from a health and care perspective that return on investment might be 3-5 years down the line. And sometimes investors or even the health and care partners don't have that time to wait either. So I think that's something that stifles innovation at points.
Yeah, I think from our perspective in construction built environment, adoption can be a major blocker to the innovation, that you can have the proof of concept, but you're not getting the wholesale adoption from a sector that is quite slow to change. And I think that is probably what does create that kind of bottleneck, where you have a lot of innovation, a lot of investment, a lot of research in a particular area, but there is just no funnel with which to direct that into the business. And that's what comes back to that problem statement, or is it something that's investable? To come back to the return on investment, we within our sector we struggle with a capital expenditure versus a revenue cost saving, because these tend to be funded differently for organisations, which means you can tell someone, if you do this better, you will save money in operation, and they'll tell you, I don't run the operation budget, I run the capital expenditure budget. The capital expenditure budget is limited. It doesn't matter that we save on it. And I think that's it. So funding, not in the sense of can you fund this activity, it's a holistic view to finance is required. A largely systemic change. And while we talk about public sector as well, annualised budgets and financial years are extremely problematic.
Yeah, and the other things that can get in the way, I mean, other people can get there first with a product. So pip to the post, as it were. The market may not be there anymore, and regulation can also get in the way, especially with really new technologies, biotechnology, cultivated meat. If you think about GM crops, regulation came in, policy came in that then basically stalled those markets. So there can be environmental, external factors, policy factors, regulation that can get in the way of people having confidence in investing in innovation to get them to market. So you can't control those things.
Political change as well. You know, if the mood music changes from one focus area, we obviously have a clear focus on net zero and accelerating the built environment towards net zero carbon. But the political wind on that has shifted and can shift daily in perceptions on certain technologies or approaches. So there can be things that are out with your control, even if you have a good, solid solution.
I don't want to end on the kind of stalling power. Has anyone got a sort of example or where they've seen this sort of diffusion work particularly well?
I think for digital health, which I think touched everybody's life, COVID is a good example where innovation to adoption can be accelerated if there's the will, there's investment, and there's a overwhelming need. So we were seeing innovation in our sector can take sometimes 15 years. And we were seeing in COVID times it taking 50 days to get that innovation scaled, which is incredible. So I would say it can be done, but there has to be risk-taking. There has to be a level of boldness from the top to actually give us the authority to move innovation to adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. I think overall positive. I think that we would say that I think that it looks promising in the future in terms of the adoption of innovation, because we have those examples of where we know you can break the mold and you can move forward. And I think the adoption is happening. I think it's maybe just happens at a slightly more modest scale than we might otherwise hope, but it's still moving in the right direction.
I think things always take longer than you expect. So we've been supporting industrial biotechnology for 12 years now, and we have over 200 companies in Scotland, so we're getting there. It just takes time. And I think holding a firm vision of where you're going and really sticking to it, whatever happens around you.
Sure. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for, but thank you very much and see you at the next episode.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna.